Oh, thank you, Brittany, for turning on the recording. To secure funding through the state to help small farms and ranches across the state become more drought and disaster resilient so that we don't have to keep issuing disaster relief funds as we did through OCFSN in 2022. Hopefully we can help folks prepare to get out in front of some of those things before they happen. So you're going to be hearing from me. My name is Alice Morrison. I'm one of the co-executive directors of Friends of Family Farmers. You're also going to be hearing from our legislative champion, Representative Ken Helm, and from Andrew Collins Anderson from the Oregon Community Food Systems Network today. So as folks are coming in, and this presentation is being recorded and will be made available on the FoFF website and YouTube channel, so folks who are not able to join us today can look back at this information. And I also want to say that we are currently developing the specifics of the disaster relief program. So we will do our best to answer all questions today, but there will be more information coming. Andrew's going to talk about our process and how those programs are developing. So thank you all so much. And I'm just going to kick off with a little bit of background information and then hand it over to Representative Ken Helm to talk about the process. So let me share my screen really quickly. All right. So welcome. As I said before, my name is Alice Morrison. I'm one of the two co-executive directors of Friends of Family Farmers, which is a statewide nonprofit here in Oregon. Our mission is to advance policies and programs that protect, promote, and sustain resilient and economically viable community agricultural systems in Oregon. And we envision a local, diversified, and interconnected agricultural future built by small and mid-sized farms where people, animals, communities, and ecosystems thrive, and equitable policies improve lives and land for all Oregonians. So those are our mission and vision statements, but what does that really mean? It means that back in 2005, we were founded by a group of farmers who didn't find themselves represented in conventional and commodity agricultural groups that were helping to shape the system that we live in. So they came together to create a collective voice for small and mid-sized, highly diversified, and local market farmers across the state. And since we began in 2005, we have grown to not only our advocacy, but also our direct technical assistance programs. And we now are proud to represent over 1,600 farmers across the state who engage with us on a daily basis. In addition to our advocacy, we run two technical assistance programs. The first is the Oregon Pasture Network. It's a producer community of practice that enables farmers and ranchers raising livestock on pasture to come together to improve their practices through continued education, peer-to-peer learning opportunities. There's a mentorship program within the Pasture Network, as well as reaching new community members to purchase their meat from. We run the Oregon Pasture Network Pastured Product Guide. So if you on the call today are not a farmer, or if you are a farmer but you don't raise animals and you're looking for someone in your community to buy values-aligned meat and animal products from, head on over to OregonPastureNetwork.org, type your zip code into our Pastured Product Guide, and find an OPN member near you to buy directly from. We also run Oregon Farm Link, which is a land access program. Within that program, we have the Oregon Farm Link platform, which allows land seekers and land holders to make listings on our website and connect with each other to find the land appropriate for your farming goals, or to find the next steward of the farmland that you want to pass on. So whether you are at the beginning or middle and you're expanding, or the end of your farming journey, Oregon Farm Link can help you with all of your land needs. And we also have a one-on-one technical assistance program for land seekers through Oregon Farm Link called the Farmland Navigate program. That is a program that is currently accepting applications to help folks develop an individualized land plan and have some one-on-one case management time with our navigators, as well as subsidized access to legal expertise, real estate professionals, and all that kind of thing to help you get from, okay, I know what my business plan is and I'm kind of looking to, oh, I'm able to take my land search seriously and find the land that will make my farm business a reality. We also participate in advocacy. These are a bunch of the things that we've worked on over the last, well, some of these are from, most of these are from 2023, but also some that we've participated with for the last decade and a half. And they're right, the third from the top is the drought resilience funding that we're going to be talking about today. So that's just one example of us bringing farmers to Salem, but that is a constant in our advocacy programming, not just working on legislation like we're going to talk about today, but also connecting farmers with their policymakers at the state, local, and county level, as well as bringing legislators out to our farmers to help them see, what's going on the ground of Oregon's small farms. So all that to say that that's FoFF, but we're not here just to talk about us. We are also a founding member of the Oregon Community Food Systems Network, which is a coalition of 50 some odd groups across the state who are involved in different aspects of the food system. We have groups representing producers, representing the distribution side, the hunger and food security side. We have folks representing mutual aid groups. We have a lot of different avenues into the food system, as well as, environmental groups and land access groups and all of those different things. And Andrew is here representing OCFSN, and you'll hear from him on the specifics later, because we were able to join with them in this past year to approach our legislative partners and work with Representative Ken Helm and Representative Owens to make this a reality. We started this process back in the fall of 2022, when Megan Kemple and I sent over some proposals of we had so much success in 2021. The 2021 special session awarded OCFSN, I forget the exact dollar amount, but over $1 million of $1.5 million of disaster relief funding to help reach the smallest, most diversified, most vulnerable farmers across the state who were impacted by the myriad disasters of the 2021 growing season. And we came together with OCFSN and helped Brittany, who's on the call today from FoFF, help to administer those grant funds and get relief dollars out to folks who did not qualify for the ODA relief program or did not qualify or did not receive funding from ODA for their relief program. And we were able to backfill that for the smallest farms in the state. So given that success of that program and all the things that we learned, we came to the legislature with a proposal regarding disaster resilience as well as relief in order to get out ahead of some of these disasters and build on the success of the disaster relief program that OCFSN built with FoFF's help in 2022. So then we came to our legislative partners, requested some disaster resilience funding, and through the process, we're able to work with Representative Helm and his office to develop the proposal that became this project that we're talking about today. So it was a long process with many partners involved, and thank you to everyone on the call who submitted testimony or filled out any of our action alerts regarding this. We really do appreciate that, and demonstrating the support in the community is crucial to getting these kinds of things out into the world and become a reality, and we really appreciate that going forward as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our Representative Ken Helm, legislative champion of this issue, so he can talk a little bit about the process from his perspective. Thank you so much for being here, Representative.
Good afternoon, I guess it is now. It's nice to be with you all. And first off, I'll apologize for the little bit of informality and dress. Where I'm coming to you from today, it was 18 degrees this morning outside, and it still isn't warm enough inside to take my hat off. So appreciate that. I think what my part in today's discussion is just to briefly help everybody understand why we have money for food networks and food resilience. And so I'll try to cover that briefly and then just hand it back to your other speakers, and then I'll be available for questions. So many of you followed our progress in the 2023 legislative session as Representative Owens and I marched forward with what we called a drought package to start with. It was a bipartisan effort that turned into essentially a bicameral effort to elevate the need for funding for various different aspects of water as water is needed and used on the landscape in Oregon. We initially proposed, we initially talked to a lot of folks in the interim to try to understand their needs. We did our best to cover the state, from grassroots organizations up to associations, big ag to small ag, our conservation friends, of course, as many of our tribal partners as wanted to talk about water, and most of them did. From those discussions, we took a swing at coming up with a package of actions and investments that we thought were needed for just this next biennium, the one that we've just entered. So the biennium between 23 and 25. That package totaled to between $250 and $300 million. So we presented that to the committee and then went to work trimming that down, actually, because we weren't going to get $300 million, and we didn't know exactly what we were going to get in terms of a total budget until near the May 27th revenue forecast. In the end, we've got something around $110 million to work with, and that's not counting other water projects that were approved through the standard budgeting process, where a senator or a representative comes to our budget writers and says, hey, my community needs this X. So there was several $1 million that was allocated in that way, and that was done not through the committee, but through the budgeting process. So we took that $250 to $300 million package and we said, okay, this time around, we really need to look at how the state prepares for water scarcity. And so we implemented 5 principles, of which I can't remember all of them right now. And I was trying to find my list. But one, the issue item that we were going to tackle had to be related to water scarcity and drought this time around. And that kind of left out water quality, which is something that we will get back to. We wanted the solutions to be fairly community-based, and we wanted projects that could qualify for federal funding. And as you know, there's a lot of federal funding around, but Oregon often leaves money on the table because we can't come up with a match. And so there was a strong emphasis on that. Overall, we wanted to have a package that was balanced to 3 ideological areas: fish, meaning our ecological needs; farms, meaning our agricultural needs; and families, meaning primarily how to get fresh water and clean drinking water to everyone who needs it in Oregon, and provide the other water services that go along with just living our daily lives. And so the topic that you're discussing today has to do with some food resiliency lessons that we actually learned by granting some money after the heat dome and the impact of COVID and the pandemic in the 2021 session, where we provided some emergency funds that were oriented towards securing our agricultural sector and bridging from a crisis into a future where economics of farming settled down again, and it hopefully looked a little better than it looked in 2021 and 2022. So we took that learning forward, and we also learned from some of the investments in community food networks that was a really efficient way to spend the money. We got super great feedback from that sector. And because we felt that the folks that were granted the money for those purposes had made those dollars stretch really far, we thought that was a good investment again. And so that's the origin of the monies that you're most interested in, and that we are seeing going to be deployed. I think they're just starting, and we expect that money to do good things for the next couple of years. So that's how the money came to be, and just to say again that money for food networks and small scale agricultural viability hits all of our criteria, and so it ends up being a way to spend money that is a triple bottom line win at least. So we're really encouraged and looking forward to what is done with the money, and hopefully that will reinforce future asks along the same lines. So I'll leave it there, and I'll hang around for questions.
Great. Thank you so much. We do have a presentation from Andrew from OCFSN, but I think that we might have some time for questions for you, Representative Helm, before we move to Andrew, so that we can make sure you get out on time as well, because I know you have lots of commitments out there in the world. If anybody has questions for Representative Helm, you can put them in the chat. You can unmute yourself and ask directly. We are a pretty informal group today. If you want to raise your hand, we can call on you, but also you feel free to unmute and ask directly. And I do have a couple of questions that were sent to me ahead of time that I can ask as well if folks are still thinking about what they'd like to ask. I think that my question, you touched on this a little bit, but something I'd love for you to answer is, how important is it for communities to participate in these kinds of legislative processes and to advocate for their favorite or necessary programs and such? Like, what is the role of public participation in helping develop these programs and getting them across the finish line?
It's really huge. It's super important. And one of the reasons it's important to have community-based organizations, in particular grassroots organizations, come to us as they can, is that it's a goal, I think, of particularly the natural resources space, both the governor's office and the legislature, to do ever better job listening and trying to gather in perspectives and situations and information. That makes for better legislation, and it makes for a process that when you get to the end point, more organizations and more people can feel like they were heard. They see themselves in the legislation, in the appropriation or the policy change. And then there's less friction when you come to implementation and being able to support those dollars on the ground. So super important, super desirable. And we're always trying to get more information, not less. So when you can come to us in whatever form you can make it, we really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that is really exciting and heartening to hear that, it's not just people making decisions out in the legislature, but also bringing forward these community-based proposals is welcome and necessary to the process. I think we have another question that was sent in beforehand. Is there anything that you can tell us about the future of water conservation or the work that you're doing as it relates to this topic, or anything we should look toward in coming policy sessions related to this kind of small farm initiative and drought resilience that we should be on the lookout for?
Yes, and these topics are not necessarily new, and just to say there's been no decisions made as yet. We're hardly out of the interim from the long section, and the short session is shaping up to be pretty mild, and a session which, at least from the water and agricultural perspective, I'll be trying to get funded some programs that didn't get their fair share in 2023, like the Oregon Ag Heritage Program. So look in medium term for those types of work to be done. Then in the long term, the big project in terms of water availability for agriculture balanced with ecological protection is, how do we conserve more water when and where we need it? On the landscape, that means actions that take place in the upper watersheds that are ecologically sustainable, that can slow water down so that we have water when we need it, and the fish and wildlife have water when they need it. And that can take a lot of different forms. And so look for those types of actions. I want to, and I know Representative Owens wants to too, work on on-farm efficiency ever more. That is a component of some of the money that we appropriated this time for irrigation district modernization. That will have, those projects will have an on-farm component too, but particularly OWEB has said, look, we think we can do a lot more with on-farm efficiencies if we have the money to do so, and they have programs in already working to do that. So it's not in reinventing the wheel. And that's all great. I think both Representative Owens and I are huge advocates of conservation, for example. But at the same time, we have to make that water safe for the folks that depend on it. And so it's great to conserve water, but then you run up against, if you're an appropriator, the forfeiture laws and the fear that if you conserve water for too long, that you'll somehow lose it. And so that's a piece of work that we need to have a good discussion statewide on, and figure out some statutory language and some agreements by which we can feel like forfeiture is less of a threat, because we're actually trying to manage water more efficiently. And when we are able to conserve the water, that a share goes to our fish and wildlife, and then what's conserved by a producer or a farmer can also be utilized in the way that they see best, without a fear of losing all or part of their water right. So those are two prongs that I think are pretty important.
Thank you so much for that insight. I think that's helpful to frame our future conversations. And especially when you get into a big issue like water in a state like Oregon, there's so many directions that you can run in, and knowing what's on the horizon is always helpful so that we can talk with our communities and possibly propose solutions to some of those problems that you were speaking about. Thank you so much. And I guess the last question that I had beforehand written out is just to ask, how can our farmers connect with you? Can they invite you to their farm? Can they come to a town hall? Or what are some opportunities to get in touch?
My legislative website is easy to find, and we actively, my chief of staff, Greg Mintz, who's on with us today, does a fabulous job of keeping me apprised of what's going on, and requests or invitations. I like getting out into all parts of Oregon, and so invite away. I would also offer up, please, so a little bit of a news update, but not fresh off the presses. We have a water caucus at the Capitol, bicameral, bipartisan. we have now that Water Caucus is staffed by Harmony Burwright, which many of you know, She's fabulous, and she has been working with folks in our first steps to take the Water Caucus members around the state and meet with folks where they live. So we had our first Water Caucus tour in the Deschutes Basin a couple weeks ago. We will have another one on the Mid-Coast in November. And we would welcome partnering with folks from your communities to come out and visit, see what you do and the lives you live. So I think that's probably the best opportunity right now. And go ahead and use Greg and I as a conduit for making those suggestions if you need to, or get in touch with Harmony directly.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here today and for your support of this section of that gigantic proposal that got whittled down over the course of 2023. And also for everyone on the call, we look forward to advocating for funding for the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program alongside Representative Helm in the coming session, because that is also a wonderful opportunity to conserve some of our working lands and keep farmland farming. So thank you so much. And I think that I will hand it over to Andrew Collins Anderson from OCFSN to talk a little bit about how the program is shaping up and what kinds of projects might be eligible.
It's nice to be with you.
Great. Thanks, Alice. Thank you, Rep. Helm. Really appreciate that information and context there. I'm going to get this set up. Got a little slideshow here. Can you all see that? Assuming yes. Okay, great. Hey, everyone. My name is Andrew Collins Anderson. I work for the Oregon Community Food Systems Network. I am the Farming for the Future Working Group Coordinator, and I am the project manager for the Farmer and Rancher Disaster Resilience Grant Program. One thing I wanted to add before we got into it, part of this whole OCFSN works on all aspects of the food system. And we have this one grant program supporting farmers and ranchers being more disaster resilient. We also were awarded funds for food hubs to distributors and aggregators to be more disaster resilient. OCFSN is managing that grant program, separate program. And then also part of the network and part of the FoFF work was also supporting the OFMA, Oregon Farmers Market Association. They're also getting money for farmers markets to be more climate and disaster resilient. So this is one piece of a big effort all across the
Hey,
screen. Just says loading. Huh.
Yeah, sorry. It was there and then it now just says loading. Could you reload the presentation? I think it'll work.
Yeah. Did that do it?
It still says loading when you hit slideshow, but we can see it in the not slideshow vision.
Huh. Let's see.
Adventures in Zoom. We thought we'd be past
Yay.
it.
Let's see here. Pause. Your screen share is paused. Resume share. That's not doing anything. Huh. Let's try this again. Yay. Okay. Let's try this.
Oh, perfect. It's working.
Loading. Good. Okay. Thanks, y'all. All right, so gave that background context. I am the Farming for the Future Working Group Coordinator. So OCFSN does work across the food system, and we have a working group model where we bring organizations and allies and all sorts of different folks together under working groups to work on specific issues. The Farming for the Future Working Group is really focused on the production side of the food system. Community food system. So I work really closely with nonprofits, agencies, and other allies, producers, addressing issues ranging from beginning farmer and rancher support, supporting farm viability, land access issues, and coordinating all the organizations that do that. And then also we talk about climate and ag issues. And so this grant program kind of fits under a couple of those buckets and is really a part of that climate resilience group. So today you all are getting a sneak peek of this grant program. We are still in program development. We just signed a contract with the state a couple of weeks ago, and so the money is not in our bank account. But we're ahead of the curve. We're trying super hard to get this grant program out before the season starts next 2024. We want to make sure this is part of why nonprofits get this funding and this grant funding, is we can be really nimble and agile in getting this funding to those who need it. So we're in the process of finishing up our grant guidelines, our request for proposals, all that stuff to get it out to you all. And I'm going to give you some details on what we're working on, but just a caveat up top that this is, you're getting a sneak peek. This is in process. We are currently developing the program. So you're getting the first look. So I'm going to go over kind of the overview of what the program is, some general qualifications for producers to apply, what's required, what our rubric is kind of shaping out to be to give points to certain farmer populations over others. We know that this grant is going to be competitive. We've got, as we saw from the 2022 disaster relief grants, a lot of great interest. More people know about it. And this is a resilience grant, much more open to folks who aren't experiencing losses. This is any small farm could be applying for this. So we know it's going to be competitive. So we want to have a really strong rubric. I'll give you that information, timeline of what we're thinking currently on how it's going to go, and the process. Talk to you a little bit about how we're reaching out to farmers and experts to create this program. Go into a little bit about the categories of resilience strategies, and then how to get your input in there and how to stay in the loop for when this gets announced. So, like I said, this all could change. We're pretty close, but we're still working with folks to refine it. Basically, we are awarded $2.65 million over 2 years. And we'll take questions. I'm sure there'll be questions about this at the end here. So just save those and maybe put them in the chat. But so $2.65 million over 2 years to re-grant to producers, small farmers, underserved farmers across the state. We work really hard to keep the overhead low for this process. So we've got a 5% overhead about to administer the program. The rest is going directly to producers. This is state funding, as you can tell, as you've heard, that is managed by the Oregon Community Food Systems Network, and then we are contracting with FoFF to support and administer this program. Some of our main goals, and that we've heard over and over again from producers, we want to keep the barriers to access as low as possible. We hear over and over again that federal grants, these fundings for farmers, are hard to access, especially our community of farmers. The bureaucracy, the paperwork, the process is always daunting for folks who are priority producing food. So we hear that really clear, loud and clear, and we're working really hard to keep this application as streamlined, as accessible as possible. We are really focused on doing direct outreach to underserved farmers. So we are going to be providing some direct outreach to get those folks who might not be on this call, who aren't watching these videos, who maybe aren't in our networks, making sure that they hear about this opportunity and are able to apply. We also are really focused on providing direct individual support for grant applicants. So we have staff available to answer questions, to support the application process. We want to be really accessible, again, in providing those resources to producers. So you have a really positive experience applying for these grants. We did this in 2022 with the disaster relief program, and it was a really important way that we built trust with producers, really made sure that these programs are trusted and utilized. And we're hiring an outreach person with Spanish language fluency to support those producers as well. We'll be having office hours and webinars as the request for proposal comes out, to give as much information as possible out there. Our resilience strategy list is farmer and expert advised and informed. We've mainly, one of the big pieces of one of the main resources that we've used to put together the list of strategies, on-farm strategies to be more resilient, is a Beat the Heat report, which was funded by the legislature's drought work in 2021. It was a report that did some really in-depth interviews with producers across the state about what they need and how they can be supported and be more heat and drought resilient. And we're also setting up the program to have 2 different funding pools. We'll have a small funds pool and a large funds pool. This is to kind of fit the try to kind of walk the line of getting as much money to as many producers as possible, but also hearing loud and clear that small grants, you can only do so much with that. So also offering an opportunity to get a little bit more funding on farms to really make big impacts. And also those pools will be smaller grants, a little lower barrier, a little easier application, easier reporting, versus the larger grants will have a little bit more stringent reporting rules. So there's that level as well, making it accessible with those small grants. See here. So the timeline, as of now, we're hoping, and it's looking promising. We're getting close to having the applications open on January 1st, 2024, having a 2-month open application period. You have 2 months to, work with us, apply, and then having awards announced by April 1st of 2024. We really want to get folks' money before, season really picks up, and we know April's kind of late, but with the timing of everything, we want it. This is, I think, the quickest we can get it out, and being equitable in that process, making sure there's enough time for applications. So that's, as of now, that's what we're thinking. This could change, and you'll be notified through the different channels when it gets announced in the process and everything. But this is our current setup, and then get funds, make sure we get funds to producers no later than the end of April. Reporting and actually implementing projects, folks will have a full year. So if you're farming busy, you're unable to implement your projects over the spring and summer, you'll have that full winter kind of more downtime to implement projects before any reporting is required. And then round 2 will be in 2025. Currently, we're similar time frame, but that's all going to be informed about how it goes in 2021 or 2024. So that could change, and we're leaving open the possibility maybe we get a request for $4 million in the first round, and we make decisions to get as much money out there as we can the first round. That's all kind of depends on what we see in the application process. So that's that second round is fluid, but we do want to keep a second round. A big important part about that is giving people enough time to take a year to think about what they want to apply for, making it more accessible and fair for those who can't meet our kind of like 2-month deadline. So general qualifications, the first 2 bullets here are requirements. The rest are kind of point systems in our rubric. We've got general qualifications. You must be actively farming and deriving farm income. And you must be a small and underserved producer, and that is determined by that USDA $350,000 farm income number. There's details all around that, what line from the Schedule F we're going to look at. We haven't finalized all those details. We want to, this is for smaller farms. We don't want big farms applying for this grant, but we also want it to be as accessible as possible and as simple as possible. So we're still working on that. How do we define that $350,000 number? Funding, you'll get our prioritization ranking or points in our rubric will go to those who are BIPOC farmers, drought impacted farmers, those in environmental justice communities. That will be questions in the rubric and points awarded for those producers. All that is in the process of being refined. We have to be really clear that our rubric in order to make those hard decisions about who gets funding and who doesn't, and we're being really intentional about that. There'll be review of budgets, project budgets, see how that is put together, see if the requested project fits with the scale of the farm, that kind of thing. There'll be reporting requirements. We're going to be asking for pictures of what's implemented in those strategies, resilience strategies on farm, and reporting on the impact. The huge reason why we got this funding in 2020 for this 2023-2024 season is because we had amazing testimonial from the disaster relief grant. People shared that this funding, the relief funding, was life changing and that it impacted their operations significantly. We need to make sure we keep providing that testimonial that this funding is really valuable in order to advocate for continued support for producers to be more climate resilient, drought and disaster resilient. And then looking at the impacts of the resilience strategies on farm are all part of that rubric and review process. Just a brief kind of overview of who our Farmer and Expert Advisory Committee is. These are producers. We put out a call, got applications or interest from producers all over the state, and we made sure to get producers from diverse regions all over the state: the coast, Eastern Oregon, Willamette Valley, Southern Oregon, Central Oregon. got folks from all sorts of different communities, indigenous communities, for advising, and then also production systems. We had vegetable producers, seed producers, livestock producers advising on this program. And then we also have experts from the Oregon State University Small Farms Program and Oregon Climate and Agricultural Network are also advising in the development of this program. So we're being, like I said before, we're being really intentional and asking those questions about how to make this the best program possible. And we're getting lots of good expert and farmer advice. So just some categories here for the ideas around resilience on farm resilience strategies. We have an extensive list that's been informed by all sorts of different resources, including that Beat the Heat report that I mentioned. But we also are accepting strategies that aren't listed. We know it's not completely comprehensive, and so folks will have the opportunity, if they have a different strategy they want to request funding for, they have a chance to explain how that will make their farm more climate and disaster resilient. So there's that. But these are the general categories: irrigation and water efficiencies, things like improving your irrigation systems, water storage, these types of things, shading and cooling, both for plants, for livestock, for people, soil health management, these things, cover cropping, compost application, these types of things, soil health practices, and organic matter build-up, ecosystem management, planting trees, other restoration practices on farm to make your farm more heat and drought disaster resilient, other crop management, changing seeds, changing planting and harvesting times, those types of things, season extension infrastructure, purchase or rental of equipment, things like no-till seed drills and those types of things. And then disaster planning is going to be an option. So like planning for an evacuation plan for your livestock or your staff if you're impacted by fire, those types of things are an eligible strategy. And then monitoring and research, soil moisture monitoring, weather stations, these types of things are also a big piece. So these are kind of like, those are just examples of a really extensive list that we'll be sharing in our eligibility guidelines and requests for proposals. And then you still have an opportunity to influence this process. I'm sure it's going to get put in the chat, but the FoFF has a survey that is asking for your needs and interests around this grant program, and we've been looking at that. We've had a lot of responses already, and so this is an opportunity for folks to fill out that survey, and then just stay in the loop, join FoFF's newsletter. FoFF is, like I said, contracted to support, advise, and implement this project, and they're going to be putting out the most up-to-date information when this gets announced, and all the details on webinars and funding timelines and all that. So just stay tuned there for updates. And we don't have our website's not live yet on this program, but OCFSN.org will also have details, so you can go there. And that's that. I think that's, yeah. Any questions? I went through that pretty quick. There's a lot of details.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And I think now is the time for folks to put any questions that you have about exactly what we're doing. And the answer at this point might be, that is a great question, and we are in development on that. The best thing you can do, if that's the answer to your question, is fill out the disaster resilience survey in the chat and make your preferences or project ideas known to us so that we can incorporate them in the project development phase. But yeah, without further ado, I think anyone on the call who has questions about process or general eligibility, please do raise your hand or put something in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question.
We figured it out, Alice. We got it all figured out. It's awesome.
Wow, ahead of the curve.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's just because I missed it. But can you clarify if this was a one-time funding opportunity just this year, or if it's going to be happening multiple years? I feel like I just missed that piece.
Yes, so it's this is funded through the biennium, so there will be 2 rounds, a 2024 and a 2025 round. That's all we know now. That's what's guaranteed, is that funding for those 2 rounds.
Cool, thank you.
We have a question in the chat from Penny. Will there be match requirements for these awards?
Yeah, great question. So no match requirements. And this is something we're working on currently. I've been meeting with NRCS staff and those folks from the different USDA arms to talk to them about the options and the opportunities for this funding to be used as match for other federal opportunities for on-farm resilience. And there's some really great stuff happening, I think, with that. And I think, yes, this is the Rep. Helm mentioned this in what he was talking about, like, this funding can be used for that federal match, and we're not going to be able to like direct you to the exact programs or the exact thing, but it's a potential if you're going down that process to utilize this funding for match for other resilience conservation programming.
That's another great thing to put in your survey response, is if you work with a lot of farmers, or you are a farmer who's applying for specific federal or state, like I know there are a lot of OWEB grants on this topic as well, on the topic of water use and irrigation improvement and things like that. If there is a specific grant program that you want to confirm that these funds could be used as match for an additional grant program, please do put that in the survey, and we can make sure that that we're aware of that and do everything we can to make that happen. The only reason I guess it wouldn't be allowed is if there's a specific requirements on the opportunity that you're trying to pursue and use this OCFSN money as dollars for. If they have specific requirements about where the match dollars have to come from, we want to make sure we're aware of that. But for federal dollars, this funding could count as match, and we're looking into it. So let us know about specific grant programs you want us to flag.
Yeah, that'd be super helpful. Well, you'll definitely be hearing a lot more from us, and just wanted to be ahead of the ball here in providing this kind of sneak peek of what we're working on, so folks can start getting prepared for applications and sharing with your farmer networks and all that. So thanks for the opportunity, y'all at FoFF.
Also, I wanted to we are going to be putting out more information about the grant opportunity itself. But in our program plan, in the budget that we submitted to the state, we are also going to be hiring an outreach team to help us get to all of the communities that we want to make sure know about this. So if you are a farmer or a service provider who's highly connected to the farmers in your area, there will be some limited duration contract positions available through this grant program to do outreach for us. And we want to emphasize that, like, we want this to be a community-driven effort. So if you are embedded in a community that you think could really benefit from these funds and would like to help people with the process or help us host outreach events and get the word out, there will be some contract positions coming available in the next month or so, I guess, is when we're going to be doing that. So keep an eye out for that, as well as more information on the specifics of the program.
Alice, really quick, I wanted to mention that we have one more Lunch and Learn coming up on the 27th of November about walnut and big leaf maple syrup. So I'll put the RSVP in the chat, and then we're going to have our newsletter coming out on Thursday that you can sign up for it then too, if you're interested in learning about syrup.
Yeah, that is going to be the conclusion of our Muckboots in the Capitol 2023 session wrap up Lunch and Learn series, because in the Farm Direct improvements bill SB 507 that passed in the 2023 legislative session, we were able to work with our partners across the state and at OSU to legalize walnut and big leaf maple syrup as Farm Direct producer process exemption products. And so we're bringing the Oregon Tree Tappers Association and the Oregon Maple Project together to answer all of your questions about how that works, because it's a relatively new product for us here in Oregon. And if you have ever wondered, hey, how do I even begin my journey toward tree sap syrup? This is a great event to tune in for and get some more information. So thank you all so much. If there are no other questions, I think we've come to the end of our presentation. And we're so happy for you all to join us and for your support of all of this advocacy and the aftermath of the advocacy, which is just as important when we actually get to implement the programs that you've helped us develop. So thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day.